People of the world, this one is going to be an interesting YouTube video. It's not going to be the standard, and as you can tell, I am live. So I usually host something called Marketing as a Foreign Language, but today we're going to be talking about how over the last few years, I have, for lack of a better word, failed quite a lot as an entrepreneur. So we're going to deep dive into exactly why that has happened. And we're going to go all the way back. And if you're looking for real content, real live content, you've come to the right place. So I was born in a small town, Mandan, North Dakota. But before we get into all that, let me just say that of all of the entrepreneurial things that I've done in my life, and there have been many and many, I would argue, I think 2 succeeded. 2. And the ones that crashed and burned all sucked a lot. And we'll get into why I believe that the ones that succeeded did well. So anyway, if anyone thinks that your personal life is somehow disconnected from your entrepreneurship, you're just nuts. There's just no way that those two things are separate. So for example, when I was 2 years old, my father passed away. Tony Kautzman was his name. And my understanding was that he did have a rental property, which will come into play later when I mention that. So I was almost 3. My kids are 7 and 5 now. And I have 0 memories of him. Just none. I think I have a vague memory of playing with like cards with little planes on them on the floor of a kitchen somewhere, I think. Anyway, so no memories of this guy. And there's something that I think Malcolm Gladwell referred to. He called them imminent orphans, and it describes people who lost a parent at an early age who have had success, and that to me has always resonated because I feel like my safety net, for lack of a better word, is always kind of tattered. It's not. I mean, I have a lot of people who love me, and I really appreciate all of them so much. But I think if you have a tattered safety net, you can fall. And you can get, it's still going to cover you. It's just, it's not as good as some other people's. And the fact that would lead to more risk taking doesn't make any sense to me. You would think that people with perfect safety nets would be more inclined to take risks, and maybe they do. I don't know. But anyway, so I grew up in this little town called Mandan, North Dakota. Economically, it's like a small prairie town. So, not really much going on. And so the first entrepreneurship idea I had was with some friends of mine. We formed a band. This is most people's first sort of like entrepreneurial thing, where you create something that could potentially make money, right? And so we got together and we came up with, I want to say, like 6 songs. And I reached out to a friend of mine recently, and he still has them. So if you want to listen to them, it's from a band called Ifrit, and it's 16-year-old me singing. And the songs are awesome. They're still awesome. Thank you very much. And I'm really proud of them. They're not perfect, and they're definitely like a high school band, you know what I mean? Like EP sort of thing. But I remember driving to Minnesota, and a friend of ours was a student at a studio that did recordings, and we recorded in a legit studio. And I remember the stress of that. There were some songs where the lyrics weren't completely done, and so there was a little bit of ad-libbing. I'm 16, you know what I mean? I don't have my stuff together. But anyway, uh, so we put out this album, and we do some shows, and I don't know what I was expecting. It's Mandan, North Dakota. Like, what are you really gonna, take the city by storm? And it was the first time, I think, where I realized that I'm just terrified of advertising, which in the Latin advertere just means to turn toward. So, for example, if someone hands you a flyer for a concert and you look at it for half a second, that's obviously advertising. If someone mentions that there's a concert, that's advertising too. And I was always really bad at it. I was more the artist, the guy who just thought, okay, I'll make incredible things and the people will come, right? The people will come. And so we had one show that was pretty good, man. It was a sea of people. And at 16 years old, that left an indelible impression in my psyche. Some of the songs we played were embarrassingly bad. Like we did a Tool cover, and I don't know. Someone in the audience told me something that was not positive about it. I also asked everyone to sit down at one point, which is weird. Like, why would you have the audience sit down? And the funny thing too was everyone did, except for one person in the very front row. And it was the same guy who told me something negative about the song. Anyway, things that you remember years later. Anyway, so so this band Defreet. Okay, great. So that was not a commercial success. We tried. We did the EP. We kind of shifted it around and tried to knock it out. And at the end of the day, it just didn't take off. I don't think we ever became a popular band. But chalk it up to the you learn something thing, right? So I learned something. I learned that you really got to promote the band. This, of course, is something that I didn't really learn. But maybe I got the inklings of starting to maybe understand that sort of thing. So it's not a fail in the sense that, the music was great and the people I played with were awesome. And at the end of the day, it was a great experience, but commercially successful. Short answer is no. No, it was not. And so I, at 18 years old, pack up my stuff and go to Minnesota, right? So to Minnesota I go. I'm going to mention one thing because it'll be relevant later, which is my mom always had this thing with dimes. And I actually have an art piece that I'd like to show you eventually that is pretty cool. It's like a big circle, and it's like a yin-yang made out of dimes. My mom's thing with dimes was if she saw one, picked one up on the street, it always was an indication to her that that she was on the right path, right? It's just kind of like a spiritual kind of thing, which is cool. And so that's become something in my life as well. I feel like dimes just have this kind of spiritual vibe. Anyway, so when I was leaving for Minnesota, I put a trail of dimes leading out to the car. So if my mom kind of was like a send-off kind of thing. Anyway, so show up in Minnesota, and I am struggling hard. It's bad. It was rough. I had not the best complexion as a young man. For those of you that have suffered from really bad acne, that was definitely me. And so I struggled with kind of keeping it together and talking to people. There was a good 8-year stretch where, and this is advertising. I'm not kidding. I'm not just trying to jam this word into the conversation because that's what this show is supposed to be about. I'm really not selling anything here. I'm just trying to tell you that if you look at the root of that word, which means to get people's attention, right? I didn't want anyone's attention. I didn't want anyone looking at me. I felt hideous, and then there were pockets of stress and pain with that stuff that were just almost unbearable. And so I just like shut down for like a whole year. It was so bad. And eventually I decided, okay, I'm going to, well, I got a job. What was the word they used to describe it? I was a blend tender at Orange Julius. Not sure if you're familiar with the blend tending arts, but yeah, did that for a year, which is awesome. Anyway, there were days where, because I was on this regimen of like, you put alcohol in your skin and that's supposed to like stop the acne, like these different like medications and stuff, and it just dried out my skin. And so every time I moved my mouth, I was in so much pain. Just this whole area was just pain for many years, and it was so bad. So I'd be working there, and I like talking to clients hurt, talking to customers was painful. And just life in general was really bad. And so I couldn't advertise at all. Like just being in my body at that point was just no fun. And I'm sure you've had a moment like that in your life, or moments, where you can empathize and you understand, because this is the nature of being a human on planet Earth. So anyway, one of the funny things about where I worked at Orange Julius was that across the street was something called the McNamara Center, which was this gorgeous building. And it just so happened to be where Incubus, one of my favorite bands of all time, wrote a song called Drive. And the chorus of that, you've heard this before. It's whatever tomorrow brings, I'll be there with open arms and open eyes, yeah. Whatever tomorrow brings. You know that one. So I've been singing that song for years. But anyway, I literally would be standing there at Orange Julius, and I would like look across the way, and I would go, oh, like I'm so close to greatness. You know what I mean? I'm literally staring at greatness. And so I was like, oh, I'll get in a band. Let's do this again. Round 2. Oh, thanks, Esther. Get him, Esther. And anyway, just quick segue. Esther is like #1 fan. Esther's the best. So thank you, Esther. You've been so supportive. I really appreciate it. You have to go to SAS Insurance and you have to buy insurance from her. You don't have a choice. You must do it, and you must do it right now. Anyway, so do the song and the stuff. Anyway, so I joined a band called Wormwood, and my high school girlfriend at the time came out to watch us do a set, and she said, it's like a mismatch. Like your voice and this like slot, like it's like it's really, like heavy music, she's like, it just doesn't match. And so I was like, okay. And the worst part is I think she was right. Oh man. Just gnarly. Anyway, so I did a terrible job of promoting that as well, because I didn't have I just didn't advertise. Like we would go and play these shows, and at the end of the day, like we had some shows, like we had a CD release party where we just killed it, but by and large it was kind of rough. Anyway, the reason I'm distracted right now is I'm looking to see if there's comments on this little restream thing. Anyway, someone's leaving comments on Facebook. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if it's synced appropriately, but I'll get them on YouTube. So if you swing over to YouTube, and catch the show, I can see them. But anyway, I ended up, with this band for a number of years, and we played shows. And again, what I should have been doing is I should have gone to the campus and printed out, 30,000 flyers for that show we're going to go play over at that one venue or whatever. And I should have just handed them out. I should have been out on the street with a guitar, just wailing, and just singing songs and meeting people and giving them flyers and saying, come to the show. That would have been smart. But no. And it's not like I didn't have the time to do it. I just didn't do it. It's never happened. Which is, just one more example of something I should have done. And so, I would lay my heart out on the shows for sure. Like there was one time, I'll never forget it. I was on stage and singing my heart out, and what happened? I totally lost my voice. Not like oh, it's kind of like you might crack, like do one of those things. It was more like I don't have a voice. It was bad. And I went to he's a good friend of mine. His name's Aaron. He was a guitar player. He's awesome. He is an awesome human being. I went to him and I just said, "Hey dude, like I can't talk." And he's like, "Too bad." Too bad, just tough love, like suck it up, buttercup, get back out there. And I did. I somehow finished the show, but oh me, oh my, that if you've never had that feeling of like, I'm gonna go embarrass myself in front of these people, man, I just, and so it's like, I don't know what the connection of that is with the dead father kind of thing. I don't know if like when you grow up and you just get like right out of the gate, I just feel like it was like the difficulty level was so high, you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, my father wasn't there and I talked to him sometimes. Like I'd never talked to that dude ever about anything, I don't even know what he looks like. I've got like one photo of him hanging in my house. And so that dude is like 100% spirit, So it's, so that just, I think it just ratchets up the difficulty level. And again, I'm not saying that this isn't the suffering Olympics, right? I'm not like, well, look at these horrible things that happened to me. It's so much worse for me. No. I know for a fact that you have suffered incredibly. So I'm not making that point at all. So anyway, so what I should have done is I should have done the advertising. Never did it. And then I made this dumb move. Well, it wasn't really dumb. I prioritized my education over the band, right? Which is, looking back on it, obviously that's, So what I had done is originally I was going to go into music because my parents and I never had a conversation about like be a business owner, or here's a business, because they had no frame of reference for that. They were teachers. And so I was like, well, my mom and my stepdad, right? And okay, so I'll go be a teacher because that's the only thing I know. And I was going to be a music teacher, and I applied for the University of Minnesota and didn't get in. Year one, I skipped over that. I ended up going to something called the Minneapolis Community and Technical College, which turns out is awesome. It's called MCTC. Wow, it's been years since I said that. MCTC. Anyway, what's great about MCTC is it's in Minnesota, but it's just one building. And there's little like skyways that you can walk to from class to class, which is so much better than a campus. Like, do you really want to be on a campus when it's, negative 20 degrees outside, February 12th? I mean, I literally rode my bike all year round in Minnesota like that, because you can't park on that campus unless you have money, and I didn't have money. Like these kids, like whose parents would like help them and stuff, who like, and I'm not saying my parents didn't help me, they didn't, but I didn't have like parking in the garage money. You feel me? Like I had ride your bike to work money. Anyway, so I mean, just imagine like February 2nd, I would work overnight from 10 till, I think my shift was like 11 till 8 in the morning, something like that. And then like, oh my God, the mornings in Minnesota, the coldest time of the day, riding your bike. There was one time where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it home. Like I might, oh my God, so cold. Anyway, so where was I? Wormwood. We're playing shows, working. I worked as a security guard for a bit. So I prioritized my education, which is to say, I had a chance to either go to Venezuela to finish my degree on time. I could do that, or I could. What was the other thing I could do? Or I could stay in the band, right? And the reason I had to go to Venezuela is because as like my first and second year studying, I didn't really know what I wanted to be, and I eventually switched over to Spanish. Quick aside, I was in high school. I sucked at Spanish. I was bad. I was not good at Spanish. And then when I went back to college at MCTC, which I mentioned earlier, I didn't start with Spanish 3 or Spanish 4. I started with Spanish 1. So I had 2 years. Esther writes, I didn't think you could impress me any more than you already have. You truly deserve all of your success. Well, Esther, you are the best. #1 fan, Esther. So much winning. Thank you. But anyway, what did I do? I totally forgot. Oh yeah, Venezuela. So I prioritized going to Venezuela, to finish my degree, because they said unless you go to Venezuela, you won't be able to take enough Spanish credits in time, because you need like 18 more. And they're like, if you go to Venezuela, then you can get the credits you need to graduate on time. And I'm like, I'm going to graduate on time. There's just, from the moment I was born, my parents were like, college, right? So, okay, it's going to happen. And so I basically told the folks in the band, like, I'm going to Venezuela, which looking back on it was so unfair to be like, I'm going to leave for 3 months. We had just released a CD. And we had this big CD show. That show was out of control. I mean, that was a good one. We played to a big venue, and that was one for the memory books. We did a Tool cover. That one was a good one. I invited people, obviously, but the difference between advertising to your friends and family is so much different than advertising to people you don't know, which you obviously should do if you want to grow your popularity. Anyway, so I go to Venezuela, and I have a really rough go at it. There, that was a tough one. For some reason, I had this like crazy back pain thing. Apparently my dad had it too. It's difficult to explain, but it hurts a lot. And so I was just suffering in Venezuela, depressed, and it was just rough. But I did learn a lot of Spanish, and I actually ended up leaving early. And I came back, and there was someone living in my room because my roommate had like sublet it out because he thought I was coming back at a different time, and I didn't communicate with him at all. It was just a disaster, total disaster, to like come back home just totally beat up and be like, oh no, I don't even have a bed. Anyway, so yeah, the Wormwood thing, what ended up happening was Aaron, who's still a good friend of mine to this day, he sat me down at a bar and he said, hey man, we're basically kicking you out of the band. And that was just a knife through the heart. That was rough. I mean, looking back on it, obviously, like, why would you want to, keep working with someone who just like leaves for 3 months? It's crazy. And then there were probably other reasons, and maybe my voice was a mismatch and there were issues. And anyway, the point I didn't make and should have was that, dude, Aaron, was a mechanic at the time, and he actually had money. I didn't have any money. I was 19, 20. I'm poor, and they wanted me to chip in on the rent for the band stuff, for the band facility. And I was always the outsider because I'm like, dude, I'm so poor. Like, I just have no money, and I just couldn't do it. And I eventually did start pitching in at one of these venues that I went to. And yeah, long story short, Aaron he just paid for a legitimate recording studio. So for this album with this band called Wormwood, I remember being in a legitimate studio, legitimate producer, gorgeous setup, and Aaron's just paying for it. So I'm like massively indebted to him for this, because I just don't have the money. And we're recording an album, and that album to this day is like the CD's gorgeous. Like, if you want a copy of the Wormwood album, let me know, because I got some. I mean, I will send you one. It's beautiful. Like, you open up, the CD's beautiful, the art's beautiful. Like, it was a legitimate work that we put a lot of time into. And so anyway, I would be in the vocal booth
and they would ask me to do. Oh, Esther wants a copy. Okay, I'll get you a copy, Esther. You got to remind me though. It's wormwood mitosis, I think it's called. I can't remember. She wants it. All right. Okay. So I'll get you the CD. Anyway, so I'd be in the vocal booth, and and so Aaron would be like, dude, do an Aaron take. And an Aaron take meant scream. Like, like don't do the, like, say don't be an R&B, or don't be an R&B singer, right? Like, rah, like, be a rock guy, right? And it just hurts. I don't know if you've ever screamed before. And I think what happens is, if you get older, like right now I actually can, I'm not gonna do it right now, but like I can do like a rock yell legitimately, because as the voice ages, it just, you can get that rasp to it. I mean, just look at Miley Cyrus. Have you heard her recently, dude? She can scream, because just sing, for 10 years every day on nonstop, and your voice just changes. Or like you listen to the Green Day, the singer of that, or the lead singer of Green Day, that dude can. Anyway, you get the point. So at like 19, it just hurts. And so I tried, and I wanted to make them happy, and I was indebted to them, and I just would just do that a lot. So anyway, we came up with the album, and then one of the saddest things that happened with the album was a good friend of mine, Levi, who's awesome, took the CDs back to North Dakota, where I thought people would care. I'm like, I was in a band, I put a lot of energy into it. I was like, Levi's going to go there. He's going to like sell some CDs. I think it was either 0 or 1. It was like 0 or 1, like no reception at all. I can't even remember if like my parents listened to it, or like any of my friends listened to it, or, I mean, the reaction, as far as I remember, was non-existent. And so I always, in the world of SEO, which we'll get to, and we only have a minute left, by the way, in case you're like, how long is this going to go? It's going to be like a 4-part series or something. It just like, it's so disheartening when you really go for quality, and you're just not rewarded, like because that's what everyone says. If you talk about anything really, but websites, and, well, not websites, but SEO specifically, like if you want to rank in Google, they just talk about, oh, you got to do quality. It's got to be quality content. It's got to be quality. I've done quality, I've done the best I can do. Like, so much effort goes into something, and it just doesn't take off, and this is the reality of the situation. So anyway, that was just, that hurt. I just thought there would be some kind of reception, and it just never happened. And then I got kicked out of the band. And so how many entrepreneur fails have we covered so far? 2 bands so far, which is a pretty young sort of vibe, young sort of thing. But don't worry, in the next episode, we're going to get into some of the other fails that are more business related. Dog website failed. Even though we had like hundreds of thousands of views on Pinterest, like killing it on Pinterest, just couldn't convert. And so that'll be the next episode. Anyway, shout out to Esther. Sorry to everyone who may have commented on Facebook. I just, like, my restream is just probably glitchy. We'll have to see if it even worked. Anyway, we'll see you for part